Hello all, I'm Suspicious Penguin, that one penguin down at the supermarket screaming at the vegetables, and welcome to Suspicious Penguin Gaming. Today I'm going to demonstrate just how far behind I am with this whole game review business by reviewing the escape pod of the Assassin's Creed franchise that arguably burned up on re-entry, Assassin's Creed Unity. Now when this game first came out, it received a lot of flack, and perhaps that's not unfair. The frame rate chugged along at times to the extent that I might as well have been watching a slideshow of the game, and several other bugs and glitches made the game unplayable for some. However, I see a lot of people now have been wondering if they were too harsh in the game, especially with the recent release of the free DLC Dead Kings. But were we too harsh? Now that most of its patches are out, with the most recent one being bigger than most computers were at the beginning of this century, I figured it's a good time to talk about this game, seeing as it's probably closer as to what the developers imagined it would be upon its release. I point you again to my nightmares for the next week. Also, side note, is that what developers think the anatomy of the human face is? Just eyes, teeth, gums, and the rest is just hot air? Moving on. So the way people like to describe this game seems to be disappointing, with the game reaching a lot of top 10s for that category. And while I admit that the game wasn't exactly what I hoped it would be, given the kinds of amazing that we saw back at E3, I didn't think it was like criminally disappointing. Or if so, it was the drunk driving of disappointment, where games like Destiny are the full-on serial killers. It had a lot of good moments in the story, the combat was decent, and the graphics were incredible. Several times I had birds crashing into my TV screen in an attempt to escape to the outside world. But you don't need to know about my secret bird room, or perhaps I've said too much. But I definitely won't go as far as to call it a great game. It has problems, a lot of problems, with a lot of new things as well, which I'll get into later. But more importantly, it simply wasn't the revolutionary, new game that we were promised back in E3. It is still very much an Assassin's Creed game. And if that's not your thing, this game isn't going to change your mind. Okay, let's dive in first with the story. Right, blimey. If you haven't played the Assassin's Creed franchise before, off. I'm sorry, I don't have the patience to explain it all to you. It's a mess with gods, not gods, these two factions of Templars and Assassins, and one of them is controlling about order, and the other one permits everything. Whatever, I don't care. It's not all that important. I think it's safe to say that most people aren't that interested in the story of Assassin's Creed games. It's more about the time period and the city in which we get to run around causing mayhem and kill guards in. And to be fair, Unity does get this down pretty well. Revolutionary France is a very compelling time period, and they do manage to get some interesting story in there. You take on the role of Arno, who is essentially a sloppy copy and paste of Ezio from the second game, but is right side better than Connor, and it's a bit more interesting than Altair or Kenway. He does have a few good one-liners.
Honestly, the quality of rhetoric amongst bloodthirsty rioters these days.
And the occasional impactful emotional scene, which I thought were pretty good. The other major character in all of this would be Elise, Arno's lover, I guess. I'll get into that. Although Elise is arguably a bit one-noted, with her character entirely being based on revenge, really.
If you don't have the stomach for revenge, then I don't need your help.
She still has a pretty decent personality, and is definitely far more of a key figure in Assassin's Creed Unity than we've seen in past female leads throughout the series. There are of course a number of rather interesting side characters, although sadly none of them stay for very long.
You certainly don't look like a blood-crazed revolutionary.
Oh, hey Napoleon!
Good. We part ways here.
Ah, bye Napoleon. Together, the two unwrap a conspiracy which is plaguing the underbellies of Paris, which is, what, 5 out of the last 8 storylines that we've seen in the Assassin's Creed franchise. A conspiracy that of course means, what else? Killing Templars. Okay, so a pretty standard setup for an Assassin's Creed game, with the exception, however, of Elise and Arno, or at least their relationship, which I found rather intriguing and quite hopeful to begin with. The parts of the story that isn't about killing Templars, which is like 20% of the narrative, seem to put all these pieces in place for a much more personal story than perhaps we've seen in past Assassin's Creeds. A much more Romeo and Juliet type of story about two lovers caught in opposite sides of a war, each firmly believing in their own ideals and yet trying to be together, all the while during a crazy revolution that's going on. And to be fair, I think this is what the game was trying to do. However, their relationship is pretty underplayed, and it's pretty inconsistent at times. At times they're a little flirty, others they're obviously deeply in love, and in some scenes they barely share any chemistry at all. It's tough to know in some more emotional scenes how to feel, seeing as we don't really know what their dynamic as a relationship is. Elise's beliefs and motivations are also rather underexplained, and she often ends up fighting alongside you anyway, adding no continuity as to what their relationship is. Now, that's not to say the story isn't a personal one. It is. It's a story about revenge from a death in these two families, which is pretty much the Superstore own brand of personal stories as they go, but it is still a personal one. This gives us the usual kind of Assassin's Creed storyline, which gives us vague excuses in order to go off and kill Templars. Which is fine, I guess. I'm just a little sick of it, especially given the kind of stuff that we saw in the beginning. Talking about the Templar targets actually, Ubisoft Montreal do show their history by blurring the lines a little bit between the Assassins and the Templars. The French Revolution was a cluster, and it's good that the developers know it.
The people are fighting for what is owed them. Liberté, égalité.
If we danced about on a simple scale in need of balancing, you'd be right. But the truth is more complicated.
It would have been very easy to make the Templars the out-of-touch aristocracy and the Assassins the heroic revolutionaries, which wasn't historically the case. However, in this case, maybe Ubisoft should have messed with history a little bit, because the game sucks in telling us who these Templars are, why we should be killing them, what their names are at some times, and more importantly, why we should care that we're killing them. Too many times I'm teleported off to kill some guy with no idea how I'm affecting this revolution, if at all. It seems to just kind of be happening in the background. Okay, a big saving grace of the story, however, is its presentation. Cutscenes, lip syncing, and acting are all superb. The game's graphics are also outstanding. I've loaded up the game just to wander around Paris, a city that feels alive and lived in with huge crowds, really giving scale to this massive city. So overall, story perhaps in an Assassin's Creed game isn't all that important, but those are my fragmented thoughts on it. So let's move on to the far more important aspect of any game, its gameplay. Okay, before I get my hands dirty, let me just say I had a lot of fun playing this game. I'm glad I bought it. I probably won't replay the story anytime soon, but I'm having a lot of fun trying to 100% it, get all the achievements and all of its collectibles and stuff. And hunting down and tracking targets is a lot of fun. When you do execute that perfect kill, sneaking your way around all the guards and using all the tools at your disposal, it is so satisfying. Unlike Black Flag as well, there are very rarely any insta-fail missions, in the way that you will instantly fail a mission if you're spotted or something. You own the mistakes that you make, and you adapt accordingly, an aspect which I thought was very welcome in an Assassin's Creed game.
You're not an apprentice anymore, boy. So study your surroundings, devise your own plan.
In fact, customization and playing your way is a really big part of the game, and it's something I really hope they keep in future Assassin's Creed games.
I'll do it my way.
The progression system was also great. As you go through the game, you level up, you get new weapons and armor, which you buy through cash earned through the improvement of your HQ. Overall, it flowed very well and it worked great. Multiplayer and co-op were also really cool. While the game servers are as fragile as your mother's good china, it was really cool to see a bunch of player-controlled assassins, all with unique armor and weapons, just running around Paris causing mayhem.
Come here, you maggots! I'll break your focus! Come on! Come out where I can see you!
Climbing and freerunning have also been improved, with a button dedicated to climbing up and a button dedicated to descending. While it still perhaps has the drawbacks that we've seen in past Assassin's Creed games, for instance it really struggles with Windows for some reason, it's still really good to see this kind of evolution in the franchise. However, the game has its faults. Unity is harsh, which would be fine, but it's not always fair, or at the very least, its mechanics don't allow you to really meet the challenge that the game often tries to set out for you. For instance, the game offers a rather cool new mechanic of stealth mode. Stealth mode allows you to essentially crouch, making you a lot harder to be detected and making it far easier for you to take cover in interiors, for instance, of which there are an impressive amount scattered throughout the open world. But for a game that emphasizes stealth this way, it seems really eager to get you into combat. Many parts of the game is like juggling babies with chainsaws. You have to be really careful. You are far too easily detected. Now in past Assassin's Creed games, this wasn't such a big deal, because stealth wasn't as emphasized, and for one thing, combat was over the top, hilarious, and a lot of fun. In Unity's case, however, combat is deliberately being made to be more challenging, which is great. Combat was too easy, and it was ridiculous at times, especially with Black Flag. Combat is now a far more finely tuned system, being more a system of parrying, rolling, and attacking at the right moments. And it's much less the hack and slash that we've seen in earlier Assassin's Creed games. And it's a lot of fun when you're up against one or two difficult enemies that you have to try and outwit. However, it gets old and frustrating very quickly, because you are very rarely up against one or two enemies, but rather scores of guards that will come running to you the second you are detected, which, as I said, happens way too easily. I can't think of a single mission where I wasn't forced into combat. All that being said, the rest of my beef with this game is a lot of just nitpicky things which would seem silly to pick out individually, but as a whole just make the game feel clunky and somewhat unfinished. The game's camera really struggles indoors, you're often spawned in strange places, the music and the crowds often dominate the voice acting. This guy, why can't I kill you? There are some last little nitpicks that I won't cover in huge detail, such as Ubisoft's continued use of microtransactions, as well as the occasional chugging of the frame rate. But these things don't bother me all that much, because we have seen these issues in past Assassin's Creed games, and other developers are equally guilty of them. It seems unfair to just pick on Ubisoft especially. Overall, I think this is a game which takes a lot of right steps in evolving the Assassin's Creed series. However, it seems reluctant to let go of a lot of other elements, making this very strange hybrid which doesn't always work all that well. However, say what you want about the game, it is so obvious that so much effort was put into making it. Buildings are created to painstaking detail. The world feels full and beautiful. Look at Notre Dame, my God, look at Notre Dame. It probably just needed a little bit more time before it was released to be finished. The story was, admittedly, a little disappointing, as I've said, but to be honest, I don't expect that much from an Assassin's Creed franchise game, but all the same. On the whole, I enjoyed this game. It's a nice break from the kinds of games that we've seen throughout the last few months, which are mostly just first-person action shooters. It's nice to have something like Assassin's Creed every year, just to relax with, explore, don't get too involved in the story, but mostly just enjoy killing guards and enjoying the locale and the time period. And like I said, the game is overall a fun one, and you do get your money's worth of about 30 hours plus of gameplay if you're looking to 100% it like I am. I just hope that with the next Assassin's Creed, maybe Ubisoft take a year off and explore their options. You know, learn from Unity's mistakes. Maybe then we'll see an Assassin's Creed that truly lives up to it. Oh, before I go, a quick review of Dead Kings. It's free, so that's a plus. I love the style, I love the themes, the new outfits are great. It's the same game. It's the same game with the same characters, the same enemies, and the same mind-boggling of a story. So thank you for watching my video. If you did like this video, prove it. Not to me, but to yourselves. And hit that like button. Do you have another game that you'd like me to review? Leave it down in the comments. Also, let me know what you thought of this review. Did you think I was right? Did you think I was painfully wrong? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next Suspicious Penguin Gaming.